So we're in chapter 11, and we're going to be in verse 3, talking about the two witnesses now. And we talked about, the abomination of desolation last week, and the temple being measured for judgment, which it says that he measured it with a reed that's like a rod, which it's never put that way anywhere else in the Bible. And a rod is always used for the rod of iron, like Jesus is going to rule with the rod of iron. So it represents like judgment, and I think that's why the reed is like a rod, instead of normal reed, I guess. In verse 3, okay, we'll just start there. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. So, chapter 11 is it's the start from the middle of the tribulation to the end of the tribulation. Because from chapter 5 all the way through 9 is the first half of the tribulation. 10, yes. 10 is like kind of a stopping point where it's like, all right, this middle point, after the first 3.5 years, at this middle point, grace is going to end. And then we're going to start from the middle to the end as we go on. And then I think chapter 19 on then deals with Armageddon, and then after that's 1,000-year reign and eternity. So it kind of goes in order, but at the same time it's parenthetical, because right here in chapter 11 it'll go from the middle to the end. And then we'll go back to 12, middle to the end, and it does that. Yeah, and when you get the timeline understood, things become more clear. And that's another big concept of understanding this, is getting the timeline down, which is good that you got this, because you can go back and...
Yes, I pull it out every week to look at it.
Good.
It's a great timeline.
Yeah. So what God is saying is, He's measured the temple. What's the temple? It's not the church. It represents Israel, because they're the ones. It's the Old Testament law, with the temple and the sacrifices. Mm-hmm. So God is saying, all right, the iniquity is full. All right, the Gentiles have done enough. I'm done with them. I'm cutting them off. Now, Israel's been cut off, right? And we can read scriptures on that if you guys want to, that God has cut them off and grafted in the Gentiles. And now at this point, Gentiles are cut off. Back. Yep, and now Israel's being grafted back in. Yeah. So that's why God's measuring the temple, because it's like like I said, He measures for new beginnings and for judgment. So He's measuring for judgment on the Gentiles and a new beginning for the Israel. So, and that's what He's doing, because He's going to be working with them. So that's important. And the reason why that's in there is because now we're going to be talking about how God's going to work with Israel, and that's going to be through the two witnesses. So let's go to Malachi chapter 4. Malachi 4, which is the last book of the Old Testament. Oh. I already went too far. It's Malachi then Matthew. And what you'll find something really neat here.
4, chapter 4.
Yes. I'll point out something really neat after I read it. The very last. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read the whole chapter. The whole chapter, it's short. It's a short chapter, but the first half of it's actually talking about the Battle of Armageddon. And the reason why, there's a reason why I want to read that, so you get it kind of placed where we are in the timeline. Okay. And hold on, where am I at? Okay. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. You remember what John the Baptist said? He said, oh man, now I got to figure out how to quote this. He said, every tree that does not bear fruit shall be burned up in the fire, with unquenchable fire. He's talking about Battle of Armageddon. He's also talking about, there's hell. And that's, your soul's going to end up in hell if you don't, follow the Lord. But he's getting that out of here, where it talks about the Battle of Armageddon. which the Bible also calls the day of visitation. The day of visitation is when the Lord shows up. So his first coming, Jesus' first coming, was the day of visitation. His second coming, which is right here that we're talking about, is the day of visitation. And when you die is the day of visitation.
Oh.
Anytime the Lord shows up in your life, it's the day of visitation. When you have an encounter with God, same thing. God said about the Jews when they crucified Christ, they said they did not know that he visited them about the day of visitation. They had no idea, and he was walking and talking with them, till 33 years old.
So it's possible to have visitations.
Yeah, anytime you have, even in the small daily things, anytime you have.
That's what I'm asking.
You're talking with the Lord. It's a visitation. Okay. And we're supposed to be walking and talking with him.
Yeah.
But it's a visitation. So when you reject God, God's going to say, "I came and saw you, and you still rejected me." No excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a visitation where it's the end. It's your time. And for the whole world, this is the day of visitation.
Okay.
For the end.
Okay.
The first visitation was to bring them in. The second one is because they didn't come in, and now he's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the same thing with our life, is God comes and meets us, and if we don't meet him, there's going to come a day where he's going to visit us in this kind of way, But cool thing is, well, let me read the rest of this, and I'm going to tie this together. Shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. So when Jesus comes, he's coming for the wicked to destroy them by fire, and for the righteous to bring healing. That's what that's saying. And if you notice that, that's S-U-N. I mean, yeah, S-U-N, not S-O-N.
Yeah.
That's how it's written in the manuscripts even.
Huh.
But it's talking about Jesus. The Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, if you remember when we read Joel 2 a while back, it's talking about the saints marching with Christ and destroying the wicked by fire. And that's what it's talking about during that Battle of Armageddon. Okay, now listen. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. So he's saying this. He's talking to them in the future. The Israel that's going to get saved in the future that we're studying about in Revelation, he's saying, don't you remember? Don't you remember? I'm coming back. I'm going to come back for you. You have to remember, too, this is the last book of the Old Testament right here. This is like the end of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
This is like the end. God's giving them a message now. I'm
So
cutting you off.
So after this, Jesus is...
Yeah, he comes into play. So the message here, it's like God is saying, I'm cutting you guys off because you didn't accept me. I'm going to send my son. You're going to kill him, and I'm done with you. But I want you to remember this, because in the future, before my second coming, I'm going to get you saved. Then I'm going to come for you. Okay, so he's saying, remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So that's why I read that, because that's the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So right before his second coming, he's sending Elijah. Revelation 11, he sends Elijah. Okay. And we know it's Elijah because it's Elijah was taken up into a chariot of fire. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Okay? So, I actually probably should have got a few more scriptures down, now that I'm thinking about it. But Jesus said, when the disciples were asking about Elijah coming, he said, behold, Elijah's come already. Now, a lot of people use that as Elijah's not coming during the tribulation. He's already come, you know. But he said that John the Baptist was Elijah. So John the Baptist, and you guys should go back and read that in Luke. came in the spirit of Elijah. Elijah was in the wilderness, and he was a prophet, and he spoke to kings, and and John the Baptist, God called him Elijah because it said that there was a prophecy about John the Baptist that he would come and prepare the way of the Lord to make his path straight. See, now I'm getting all, I didn't really study before I came here too much.
So
I didn't have time, so I wish I had all these scriptures down. But
John the Baptist came in the spirit of Elijah.
John the Baptist came in the spirit of Elijah. And we can, we'll go through that too, because we really need to get this all studied out. Like I said, the prophecy said, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. That was talking about John the Baptist. So what that's saying is, when Jesus came, before his ministry began, John the Baptist ministry had already started. John the Baptist was preaching, repent, and he was preparing the way for Jesus Christ to come onto the scene. So John the Baptist had the attention. Scribes and Pharisees, a lot of people, got them all kind of prepped up, basically. Mm-hmm. Now that when Jesus comes on the scene, it's going to really bloom out. And he even said, there's one standing here whose shoe latches I'm not worthy to loose. And then he says, this is the Christ. And they were saying, are you the Christ? People were thinking he was the Christ, because God sent him to prepare the way. So he came in the spirit of the Lord. But God likens him to Elijah. And you'll have to go back, maybe you can just, that's what you can read at home. Go back and read about Elijah, and then read about John the Baptist. And see. So, like I said, there's always duplicates. There's an old and there's the new. The old is the type and shadow of the new. So we've got John the Baptist spiritually like Elijah, and then we got the actual Elijah later on. He's a type. John the Baptist is a type and shadow of the real Elijah. So when Jesus said he's come already, he's just saying he's already come through John the Baptist, but he's actually coming again. Yeah. That's what it says here is, before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So when Elijah comes, it's right in the middle of the tribulation. And then he's going to be killed right before Jesus shows up on the scene at his second coming. Okay. But then it says, he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So now we're also talking about the first coming, because the Bible says that Jesus was sent in the fullness of times, right in the nick of time. Right, God was about to smite the earth with a curse. He was about to destroy the earth. And, I don't know, a lot of people may not know that, but if God didn't send Jesus, he was just going to wipe it all out again and be done with it. So he sent him right, it says the fullness of time. So just like in the middle of the tribulation.
There's scripture that we know that God was going to wipe out. Okay.
Yep. Well, that's what it's saying right there. He was going to wipe it all out, because that's what he does. See, at the fullness of times, that's when God's done. He's done working with you. So if he didn't send Jesus, he would have done that. Because it says in Galatians that he sent his son in the fullness of times. Fullness of times is God's done with you.
So thank you, Jesus.
Yes. And by sending Jesus, it kind of reset things for another 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. And we call that grace. Yeah. But now we're reading, right before we read about Elijah in 11, fullness of times again. So he's sending Elijah and Enoch to work with Israel during the fullness of times, before he comes and smites the earth with a curse. And if he is going to get Israel saved, then Jesus is going to come and take the earth, and Israel's going to bloom again on the earth. But let's go to Genesis chapter 5. Like I said, let's make the homework. Let's just read about Elijah and John the Baptist, and I'll give you the scriptures. But it's not just Elijah. There's another man, 2 witnesses, right? And I want to show you why it has to be Enoch. That would be the second one. Now, you guys understand that Elijah was taken up in a chariot of fire, right? You guys read that? And if it's okay if you haven't. Okay. Well, I'll have you read that. So Elijah.
I need to read both.
Yeah. Elijah was taken up in a chariot of fire. He has not died yet. So the Bible is clear that he's sending Elijah. He's sending a man who is taken to heaven without dying. Okay, so there's only one other man that qualifies in the same way. A lot of people think it's Moses, but I can show you scriptures that there's no way it's Moses. Moses died. He died, so there's no way that he could be one of the 2 witnesses. But let's read this here.
Chapter 5, 1.
Yeah. It's actually going to be 21.
21.
I'm not going. I feel like I'm just throwing information out
Yeah,
really
you're
fast.
okay.
That's okay.
But
Yeah,
the more we go through it, you pick up some here, some there.
Oh, wow.
You only lived 65 years, where everybody else lives 3 and 900 years.
He lived 60 and 5 years and began. No, he lived longer than that.
Okay.
Here, let's read it. And Enoch lived 60 and 5 years and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 300. Oh, I was wrong. I told you he started serving the Lord after 3. No, he started serving the Lord after the 65. But
That's when he had his
but
baby.
but still, you guys are in your 60s, right?
Yeah. You just had a
So
kid.
see, I told you
Yeah.
better late than never, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
You're good, baby.
Okay.
And all the days of Enoch were 360 and 5 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. It's very subtle. But he said he walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Okay, so, yeah, so he was just serving the Lord, and then all of a sudden, God took him.
In this Message Bible, it says, and then one day he was simply gone.
Yeah.
God took him.
He just disappeared. I don't know how he took him, but
Mm-hmm.
Elijah was taken in a chariot of fire,
Mm-hmm.
But who knows how he was taken.
And one day
But nonetheless, he has not died.
Huh.
He's in heaven right now with Elijah in his corrupted body. But in the presence of God, this body can't age.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, right.
So but this is the thing though.
Yeah.
They still have to die.
Okay.
And we're going to read in chapter 11 where they both die. So Elijah was taken to a chariot of fire. Enoch was translated to heaven. They're both living in their corrupted body right now in heaven, and they still have to die. So let's go now. So we've established, kind of who they are. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 5.
That's truth.
I think it's right before Malachi, actually.
Yeah.
I've never really
Zechariah
memorized.
chapter
I just kind of,
Okay.
I'm really bad at remembering those things.
One,
Okay. So I'm going to start in verse 1.
okay.
Then I turned, well, actually, hold on. Oh, you know what? This might be the wrong chapter. This is the wrong chapter. It's actually,
4.
hold on, I
A
gotta actually
lampstand and
find
2
it.
olive trees?
Yes.
4.
Is that 4? Okay. All right, cool. Okay, I'm going to read all of 4 then. And the angel that talked with me came again and waked me up as a man is wakened out of sleep. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are upon the lamp thereof. So there's this bowl, and you've got the big bowl, you got these pipes coming up, and there's a candlestick on each pipe coming around, and it's, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl, and the other upon the left side thereof. So I answered and spake to the angel that talked with me, saying, What are these, my Lord? Then the angel that talked with me answered and said unto me, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he answered and spake unto me, saying, This is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. Okay, now, that's not going to make any sense if you don't understand what's going on here. In this time, Zerubbabel was governor, and God was having them rebuild the temple. This is when, so Babylon had came in and destroyed the temple, okay, brought them, the Israelites, captive to Babylon. Well, Cyrus, God said I was going to have Cyrus make a decree that he was going to send them back to their land, and they're going to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple and everything. And so this is talking about Zerubbabel's like, Lord, how is this going to happen? Everybody's against us, you know. And you'll read, if you read in, I think it's Nehemiah, oh man, what's the other one? Well, whatever. That they had some trouble rebuilding the temple. They had people against them. So he's looking at this like, man, this is impossible. And God is saying, no, it's not impossible. It's not by might. It's not by power. You know, we don't overcome sin in ourselves. It's not by power and might and strength. It's by the Spirit of God. So to rebuild this temple, it's by the Spirit of God it's going to happen. So I don't care what's against you, it's going to happen. Because I'm going to make sure it does by my Spirit. And that's the real power, is the Spirit of God. And so, I forgot what I was going to say here. Man, I went blank here. Sorry.
About Zerubbabel,
I had something I was going to say, and I completely.
where he's rebuilding the temple.
Yeah. I was going to say that. So he's talking about the two olive trees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he gave him this picture of the bowl, the candlesticks. Now, remember in the temple there was the 7 candlesticks.
Yeah.
That had to, you know. So he's given this picture. There's these 2 olive trees that are feeding the bowl of olive oil that keeps the candles lit, keeps the fuel going, right? And to keep our fuel going in our life, it requires surrender and prayer, right? That's the spiritual side of it. But God is saying, this is how my Spirit works. It's an ever-flowing oil.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to trust in me, and it's going to happen. So, in Revelation, God said, these are the 2 olive trees. They're talking about the 2 witnesses. These are the 2. So now he's tying this all together in Zechariah. These are the 2 olive trees, okay? This is what he's saying. By my Spirit, I'm sending the 2 olive trees, the 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
And it's not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord, that I'm going to get Israel saved, even though everybody's against them. Because this is when the Antichrist, they had just surrounded Israel. They started killing them. They had to flee out, get out of Dodge. They're out in the wilderness with nothing. So what's God going to do? He's going to feed them. He's going to work with them. They're going to be out there 3.5 years with nothing. But no, he's sending Elijah and Enoch, and they're going to preach and teach and prophesy to them, and they're going to lead them to salvation. And we know God's going to feed them because how, you know, if
And
you have
protect
nothing,
them.
God's going to feed you.
He's going to protect them too. Yeah.
He's going to protect them, and he's going to feed them, and he's going to work with them. Okay, so I had a hard time getting this because I've got like brain fog right now, you know what I mean? And I didn't run through all this before I came here, and I hate that. That's usually what I do is I run through all this stuff, and then God starts speaking to me, and I get it all connected, but it's so complex sometimes to try to teach this that I was getting lost. But that's the connection, it's by the Spirit of God. So he's taking an example of back then. He gave Zechariah this vision to give to Zerubbabel, that it's by the Spirit of God that this is going to happen for the rebuilding of the temple. Now God is saying the same thing for the rebuilding of Israel.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make
getting them saved.
Yeah.
But instead of this spiritual olive tree thing, it's actually them coming down and doing it, and God's His Spirit through them. Now, it's going to say, it says in Revelation that they're going to be able to protect themselves and Israel, basically, because they're going to be able to breathe fire. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
They're going to breathe fire. They're going to make the rain stop. They can do anything they want when they try to get attacked, and that's how they're going to protect Israel. So, So we can go back to Revelation. So I would say, go ahead and read, and I'll look it up. About Elijah and then about John the Baptist. See that connection.
Okay.
I'll give you all the scriptures so you can check that out. What time is it?
Yeah, 10:18.
Let's just stop there. I think that's
Okay,
because it's
perfect.
gonna.
Well, we'll do that.
Yeah,
We'll get caught up and that's all.
See, that's our